2 weeks after the battle at Epsilon Outpost, Sung-Ho stood in a large meeting room on the Indomitable. The walls were curved and white. A round table sat in the center. Around it were the highest-ranking officers of the Concordate fleet. Sung-Ho's leg was still healing. He had spent several days in the medical bay. Now he stood straight, trying not to show any pain. Commander Tae-wan entered the room. Behind him came 3 aliens Sung-Ho had never seen before. They wore the special robes of the Concordate Science Council. "Please sit," Tae-wan said to everyone. Sung-Ho sat between Ji-eun and Zal. Across from them was Voss. Nemi was not there. Its containment suit had failed before they reached the Indomitable. The medical team had managed to save most of its gas form in a special tank. It would take months to grow a new body. "The data you recovered from Epsilon Outpost has proven extremely valuable," Tae-wan began. "It contained details about the telepathic blocker the Void Coalition was using. Our scientists are already working on countermeasures." One of the Science Council members stepped forward. It looked like a tall, thin human, but with blue skin and 6 fingers on each hand. "But that is not why we are here," it said. "We are here to discuss what happened on that outpost, what Engineer Kim Sung-Ho did." All eyes turned to Sung-Ho. He looked down at the table. "The telepathic blocker stopped working," the blue alien continued. "At first we thought it had simply failed, but the reports from your squad members tell a different story." It turned to Zal. "You reported feeling an emotional wave so powerful it overwhelmed the blocker. Please explain." Zal's insect mandibles clicked nervously. "It was like nothing I have ever felt before. A storm of emotion, pain, anger, determination, so strong it broke through the blocked telepathic field." "And it came from the human?" asked another council member. "Yes," Zal said, "from Sung-Ho." "Impossible," said a high-ranking Concordate officer. "Humans have no telepathic abilities. Our tests have confirmed this many times." "Perhaps we have been testing for the wrong thing," said the Blue Council member. "Perhaps human telepathy works differently." Ji-eun spoke up. Sung-Ho was not trying to send any messages. He was just standing there, facing the enemy. "I saw it all when we went back." "For him, you saw nothing," Voss corrected. "You felt nothing, because you too are human." "But I felt it. We all did. Every telepathic being on that outpost felt it, including the enemy." The third council member, a small floating creature covered in thin tentacles, moved forward. "We have a theory. Humans do not project conscious thoughts as traditional telepathy does. Instead, they can project pure emotion, not controlled or directed, but raw and powerful, like a scream that makes no sound but that every telepathic mind can hear." Sung-Ho finally looked up. "I did not do anything special. I just stood my ground." "What were you thinking about in that moment?" Commander Tae-wan asked gently. Sung-Ho was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "My family, the day they died. My promise to never be helpless again. Everything I have kept inside me for 8 years. "Exactly," said the Blue Council member. 8 years of contained emotion suddenly released. The effect was like an explosion in the telepathic field. The highest-ranking officer, an alien with metallic skin, leaned forward. "Can all humans do this?" "We believe so," said the tentacled council member, "to varying degrees. It would explain why the Void Coalition targeted Earth first, even though humans were not yet part of the Concordate. They sensed a potential threat." Ji-eun looked at Sung-Ho with new understanding. "So our weakness was actually a strength all along. We can't receive telepathic messages, but we can send emotional ones so powerful they can't be ignored. Or blocked," added Tae-wan. "The data shows that the blocker was designed to stop conventional telepathic signals. It had no effect on this human emotional projection." The metallic officer stood up. "This changes our strategy. We need to develop this ability, train humans to use it effectively." "I will begin working with other human soldiers immediately," Tae-wan said. "If we can replicate what Sung-Ho did, we have a weapon the Void Coalition cannot defend against." "Not a weapon," Sung-ho said suddenly. Everyone turned to him surprised. He rarely spoke in groups. A shield. Protection. Explain, said the damn Blue Council member. I was not trying to hurt anyone, Sung-ho said. I was trying to protect my squad, to complete the mission, to keep my promise. The tentacled council member floated closer to him. That is significant. Intention may shape the effect. Protection rather than destruction. The meeting continued for another hour. Plans were made. Tests would be conducted. New training programs developed. When it was over, Sung-ho walked slowly back to his quarters. His legs still hurt, but less each day. Ji-eun walked beside him. You're going to be famous now, she said. The first human to use emotional projection in battle. I don't want to be famous, Sung-ho replied. Too late, Ji-eun smiled. The whole Concordat is talking about you. The human who was silent in battle, but whose soul screamed so loud every alien heard it. Sung-ho almost smiled at that. It's a long title, but accurate, said a voice behind them. They turned to see Zal approaching. The Void Coalition has already pulled back from 3 systems. The news of what happened at Epsilon Outpost has spread. They fear humans now. Good, said Ji-eun. They should. The 3 of them walked in silence for a while. Then Zal said, I want to apologize. For what? Sung-ho asked. For thinking humans were primitive because you do not use telepathy. I was wrong. Your way is just different, and powerful in its own way. Sung-ho nodded, accepting the apology. 3 days later, Sung-ho found himself in a large training room. 50 human soldiers stood in rows before him. Commander Tae-won had asked him to help train them to use their emotional projection abilities. I am not a teacher, Sung-ho had protested. You don't need to be, Tae-won had replied. You just need to show them what is possible. Now he stood before them, unsure what to say. He was a man of few words. How could he teach others what he had done by accident? Ji-eun stood at the back of the room. She nodded encouragingly. Sung-ho took a deep breath. I cannot teach you to scream with your mind, he began. I can only tell you what happened to me. The room was completely silent. Everyone listened carefully. For 8 years, I kept my emotions locked away. I was silent. I thought silence was safety. He paused. I was wrong. Silence was just a wall I built. When that wall broke, everything came out at once. He looked at the faces watching him. Some eager, some doubtful. You don't need to be silent to be strong. You don't need telepathy to be heard. He touched his chest. What you feel, what drives you, what matters to you most, that is your voice, and it is louder than any telepathic shout. A young soldier raised her hand. But how do we project it? How do we make aliens hear our emotions? Sung-ho thought about this. You don't need to make them hear. They already can. You just need to stop hiding. Stop containing. Let what you truly feel become what you truly are. Over the next few weeks, the training continued. Some humans learned quickly. Others struggled. But all of them made progress. The Concordat scientists recorded everything, developing new tactics and strategies. The war changed. Human soldiers were now placed in key positions. Throughout the fleet, the Void Coalition found their telepathic advantages neutralized, their blockers useless against human emotional projection. Sung-ho was offered a promotion, a position on the command staff. He declined. Instead, he requested to remain with his squad. With Ji-eun, Zal, Voss, and Nemi, who was slowly growing a new body. Why stay with us when you could be an officer? Zal asked him one day. Sung-ho looked at his squad members, the aliens who had once doubted him and now trusted him completely. Because this is where I belong, he said simply, with those who heard me when I was silent. The next day, they received new mission orders, another Void Coalition attack, another battle to fight. As they prepared to leave, Ji-eun found Sung-ho staring out a window at the stars. Ready for another fight? She asked. Sung-ho nodded. He was no longer the silent, withdrawn man he had been. He still spoke little, but when he did, his words had weight. And when he was silent, everyone knew his soul still spoke. "Let them hear us coming," he said. 10 Void Coalition soldiers filled the doorway. They wore black armor with glowing blue lines. Their helmets had no eye holes, just smooth metal where a face should be. They moved as one, a perfect team connected by their thoughts. Sung-Ho stood, alone. He held his weapon steady. His breathing was calm. The enemy soldiers raised their weapons. They would fire together. No human could survive such an attack. But Sung-Ho moved first. He rolled behind a large computer server as energy blasts hit where he had been standing. The server exploded in a shower of sparks. Sung-Ho was already moving again, sliding under a table, coming up behind another server. "Spread out," ordered the enemy leader. "Find the human." Sung-Ho watched them separate. They moved carefully, covering each other. But they were nervous. Their telepathy was still being blocked. They could not read his thoughts, could not predict what he would do next. That was his advantage. That was his weapon. He took a small device from his pocket. It was a flash grenade designed to blind and confuse. He threw it high over the servers. It exploded in bright white light. The enemy soldiers fired wildly, shooting at shadows. Sung-Ho moved through the smoke and confusion. He took down 2 soldiers before they knew he was there. Then he vanished again into the smoke. Below the floor, Ji-un led the others through the maintenance tunnel. She heard the fighting above. "We have to go back for him," she said. "He needs help." "The mission comes first," Zal said. "We have the data. We must get it back to the ship." Nemi's containment suit was now barely functioning. Most of its gas form had leaked out. "You must go on without me too," it said weakly. "I cannot make it much further." "We are not leaving anyone behind," Ji-un said firmly. "That is the human way." Back in the data center, 3 more enemy soldiers fell to Sung-Ho's attacks. He moved like a ghost through the smoke and sparks. Silent. Deadly. The remaining soldiers grew more afraid. They had never fought someone whose mind they could not read. "He's just one human," the enemy leader shouted. "Find him!" Sung-Ho was running out of places to hide. The room was on fire now from the damaged equipment. Smoke filled the air. His lungs burned. A blast hit his leg, sending pain up his side. He fell behind a broken console. 5 enemy soldiers were still standing. They moved closer, surrounding him. Sung-Ho checked his weapon. Almost no charge left. Not enough to fight his way out. He thought of his family again, of his promise to never be helpless. He would not break that promise. Not today. He reached up and removed his helmet. The outpost's air was smoky but breathable. He wanted to face his enemy with nothing between them. As he stood up, the enemy soldiers raised their weapons, but they did not fire. Instead, they suddenly stepped back. Their helmets turned toward him. They seemed confused. One of them put its hands to its head, as if in pain. Sung-Ho did not understand what was happening. He said nothing. Did nothing. He only stood, facing them, remembering everything. His family, the day they died, his years of silence, his training, the friends he had made on his squad. All of it ran through his mind. All of his pain, his loss, his determination, his absolute refusal to give up even now. One of the enemy soldiers fell to its knees. In the maintenance tunnel, Ji-un and the others suddenly stopped. Zal was carrying Nemi, whose suit was barely functioning. Voss was just behind them with the data. "What is that?" Zal asked, insect head tilting upward. "Do you feel it?" "Feel what?" Ji-un asked. "I don't feel anything. Something is happening," Voss said, crystal body glowing with a strange purple light. "Something powerful." Nemi's weak voice came from its failing suit. "It is like a storm in the telepathic field, a hurricane of emotion." "But the telepathic field is being blocked," Zal said, confused. "Not blocked anymore," Nemi replied. "Something has overwhelmed the blocker, something strong." Ji-un looked at the ceiling toward the data center where Sung-Ho was fighting. "It's him," she whispered. "It's Sung-Ho." In the data center, another enemy soldier fell. The others backed away from Sung Ho. Their movements were jerky, uncoordinated. The leader raised a hand toward Sung Ho as if begging him to stop. Sung Ho still said nothing. He simply stood there, bleeding from his leg wound, surrounded by fire and smoke. His face showed no emotion. But inside him the storm raged. All his life, he had kept his feelings contained. All his pain, all his rage, all his determination, locked away behind a wall of silence. Now, facing death, that wall was breaking. Everything was pouring out. He took a step toward the enemy. They retreated, stumbling over each other. He did not understand why they were afraid. He had no weapon. He was saying nothing, doing nothing but standing there, remembering, feeling. The last of the enemy soldiers turned and ran from the room. Sung Ho stood alone among the flames. The door on the far side of the room burst open. Ji-eun stood there with Zal beside her. "Sung Ho," she called. "We came back for you." Sung Ho looked at her confused. Why had they returned? The mission was to get the data out. "The enemy is retreating," Zal said, mandibles clicking rapidly. "All of them, from the entire outpost. They are running away." Ji-eun rushed to Sung Ho's side, checking his leg wound. "Can you walk?" He nodded. "Why did you come back?" "We felt something," Zal said, looking at Sung Ho strangely. "The telepathic blocker stopped working, and then we felt you." "Me?" Sung Ho did not understand. "I have no telepathy." "Not telepathy," Zal said. "Something else. Something I have never felt before. Like a scream that makes no sound." Ji-eun helped Sung Ho walk. Whatever it was, it scared them away. "The path to the landing bay is clear. We need to get to an escape pod before this whole place falls apart." They moved quickly through the outpost. The fires were spreading. Systems were failing everywhere. Sung Ho limped along, leaning on Ji-eun. They found Voss waiting with Nemi, whose containment suit was now barely functioning. "We must hurry," Voss said. "Nemi cannot last much longer." The landing bay had several small escape pods. They helped Nemi into one, then climbed in themselves. Voss activated the launch sequence. "Wait," Sung Ho said. He turned to the aliens. "What did you mean, you felt me?" Zal's insect eyes stared at him. "Your emotions. They were like a storm in the telepathic field. So powerful they destroyed the blocker and overwhelmed the enemy soldiers. They could not stand against it. But I said nothing," Sung Ho replied. "I did nothing." "Your soul screamed," Nemi said weakly from its failing suit. "Every telepath for 1,000 meters heard it." Sung Ho looked down at his hands. "I don't understand." The escape pod launched, shooting away from the burning outpost. Through the window they saw the Indomitable engaging the enemy warships. The battle was still raging. "I have heard stories," Zal said quietly. "Very old stories from the early days of the Concordat, about species whose emotions were so powerful they could affect telepathic fields without being telepaths themselves." "Is that possible?" Ji-eun asked. "I did not believe it," Zal replied. "Until today." Voss's crystal body glowed softly. The human silence was not emptiness. It was control. When that control broke, everything came out at once. Sung Ho said nothing. He watched the battle through the window. For the first time in 8 years he felt different. The storm inside him had been released. It had served a purpose. It had saved them all. The escape pod's communication system crackled. Commander Taewon's voice came through. "Squad 42, do you copy? What is your status?" Ji-eun answered. "We have the data, sir. We're heading back to the Indomitable in an escape pod. And sir, you need to know what happened. The silent human wasn't so silent after all." The Indomitable shook as enemy fire hit its shields. Sung Ho braced himself against the wall of the transport pod. Around him, his squad members checked their weapons and gear. "Epsilon Outpost has been under attack for 6 hours," Commander Taewon said through the communication system. "The Void Coalition has deployed 3 warships. We believe they are after the research data stored at the outpost." Zal clicked its mandibles nervously. The plan is simple. Our pod will dock at the south entrance. We go in, get the data, and get out. The Void soldiers will know our plan as soon as we think it, Voss said, crystal body flashing with worry. Not all of our plan, Ji-un said, looking at Sung-ho. Sung-ho nodded slightly. He had been training for this. The squad now used his silence as part of their strategy. The aliens would think obvious thoughts to distract the enemy. Sung-ho would do something else, something unexpected. Pod approaching docking area. The pilot announced. Prepare for landing. The transport pod shook again, harder this time. Red lights flashed in the cabin. We've been hit, the pilot shouted. Docking system damaged. I can't control our approach. The pod spun wildly. Everyone held on tightly. Sung-ho closed his eyes. He thought of his family, of that day long ago. He had been helpless then. He would not be helpless now. With a loud crash, the pod hit the outpost's outer wall. Alarms blared. Emergency lights cast everything in a red glow. Status report, Zal demanded, pulling itself up from the floor. The pod is stuck in the wall, the pilot said. We made our own entrance, it seems. Is everyone okay? Ji-un asked, already checking for injuries. Nemi's containment suit had a small tear. The green gas inside swirled frantically. My suit is damaged. I can still function, but not for long in this atmosphere. Let's move quickly then, Zal said. The data center is on the 3rd level. They exited the damaged pod into a hallway of the outpost. Emergency lights flashed here too. The air smelled of smoke and something strange, something alien. Something is wrong, Voss said suddenly. I cannot hear the mind network. Zal turned in a circle, its insect head twitching. I cannot hear it either. The connection is gone. Could it be damage from the battle? Ji-un asked. Nemi's gas form swirled faster. No. This is something else. Something is blocking the telepathic frequencies. A loud message came through their communication devices. It was Commander Taewon. All squads, be advised. The Void Coalition is using a new weapon. It blocks all telepathic communication. Repeat, all telepathic communication is being jammed. The alien members of the squad looked at each other in panic. They had never fought without their mind network. How do we coordinate? Voss asked, crystal body flashing red and orange with distress. How do we know what to do? Sung-ho stepped forward. We use human methods, he said quietly. The aliens turned to him. For once, they were truly listening. Hand signals, visual cues, planned movements. Sung-ho showed them simple hand signs. This means stop. This means enemy ahead. This means follow me. This is so slow, Zal complained. It's all we have, Ji-un said firmly. Humans have fought this way for thousands of years. They moved through the damaged outpost following Sung-ho's silent lead. They encountered 3 Void Coalition soldiers at a junction. The enemy seemed confused, unable to read the squad's thoughts. Sung-ho pointed to himself, then to the right. He pointed to Zal and Voss, then to the left. He made a circling motion with his finger. Surround them. The aliens followed his instructions. The enemy soldiers were taken by surprise. They fell quickly. It worked, Voss said, crystal body now glowing with a faint blue light of hope. They did not know what we would do. Because we did not think it, Zal realized. We acted on physical signals only. They continued through the outpost. Twice more they encountered enemy soldiers. Each time Sung-ho's silent tactics worked perfectly. The Void Coalition soldiers seemed lost without their telepathic advantage. The data center is just ahead, Nemi said, voice weaker now. The tear in its suit was getting worse. More of its gas form was leaking out. As they approached the data center, they found a large group of enemy soldiers guarding the door. Too many to fight directly. We need a new plan, Ji-un whispered. Sung-ho looked around. He saw a control panel on the wall. He moved to it and studied the outpost layout displayed there. Then he pointed to a small access tunnel that ran under the data center. Maintenance tunnel, he said quietly. We can go under them. The tunnel was small and dark. Zal had trouble fitting its insect body through the narrow space. Nemi's damaged suit scraped against the walls, making the tear worse. "I cannot continue much longer," Nemi said. "My containment is failing." "We're almost there," Ji-un assured it. "Just a little further." They reached a ladder that led up into the data center. Sung-ho went first, pushing open a floor panel slowly. The room above was filled with computers and data storage units. 2 enemy soldiers stood with their backs to the opening, guarding the main door. Sung-ho made a quick hand signal. Ji-un nodded. She understood. They would take the guards silently, from behind. In one smooth motion, Sung-ho pulled himself up and moved behind the first guard. The enemy never heard him coming. Ji-un followed, taking down the second guard just as quietly. "Clear," she whispered to the others below. The alien squad members climbed up. Voss went straight to the main computer. "I will download the research data," it said, connecting to the system. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. Red lights flashed. "They know we are here," Zal said, insect limbs twitching with tension. "Hurry," Ji-un told Voss. "The download is at 60%, Voss replied. "Need more time." Sung-ho moved to the door. He could hear the sound of many footsteps approaching. Enemy soldiers were coming. "We will be trapped," Nemi said, its voice now very weak. The tear in its suit was much larger. Most of its gas form was concentrated in the top half of the containment unit. Sung-ho looked at the dying alien, then at the others. They had come too far to fail now. He made a decision. He turned to Ji-un and pointed to Nemi. "Get Nemi and the data out through the tunnel when Voss is done," he said quietly. "I will hold them off." "That's suicide," Ji-un said. "No," Sung-ho replied. "It's tactics. They can't read my mind. They won't know what I'm planning." Before Ji-un could argue further, the door shook as something hit it from the other side. The enemy was trying to break in. "Download complete," Voss announced. "Everyone back to the tunnel," Sung-ho ordered. "Now." Zal helped Nemi, whose containment suit was barely functioning. Voss went next with the precious data. Ji-un hesitated. "I'm staying with you," she said to Sung-ho. "No, the mission needs you." Sung-ho handed her his communication device. "Tell Commander Taewon what happened. Tell him the silent tactic works." The door shook again, harder this time. It would not hold much longer. With tears in her eyes, Ji-un slipped down into the tunnel. Sung-ho closed the floor panel and locked it. Then he turned to face the door, weapon ready. As the door burst open and enemy soldiers poured in, Sung-ho stood perfectly still and silent. His face showed no fear, but inside him, a storm was building. A storm made of all the pain, all the rage, all the determination that had kept him going since that terrible day 8 years ago. The Void Coalition soldiers hesitated. They could not read his mind. They could not predict what he would do. And in that moment of hesitation, Sung-ho attacked. "Again." "We try again," Zal said, its insect arms moving quickly as it reset the training program. Squad 42 had failed the training exercise for the 3rd time. The simulation room's lights came back on, showing the plain white walls. The virtual battlefield disappeared. "This is pointless," Voss said. "See." The crystal alien's body flashed red with frustration. "The humans cannot hear our tactical network. They act without coordination." Sung-ho stood quietly. He had followed his own plan during the exercise. It would have worked if the others had seen what he was doing. "Sung-ho was trying to flank the enemy," Ji-un said. "If you had watched him instead of just talking in your mind network, you would have seen his plan." Nemi floated down from the ceiling. The green smoke inside its suit swirled faster. "We cannot constantly watch for physical signals. It is too slow. In real battle, mind speech is the only way." The squad had been training together for 2 weeks. Each day was the same. The aliens would make plans using telepathy. The humans would try to follow along using only what they could see. It never worked well. "Tomorrow we try again," Zal said. Commander Taewan will watch. We must do better. Later, in the mess hall, Sung-ho sat alone. He ate his food slowly. The special meal was made to taste like Korean food, but it wasn't quite right. Nothing in space was quite right. Ji-eun sat down across from him. You need to talk more, she said. The aliens think you're simple because you're quiet. Sung-ho shrugged. Talking doesn't change minds. It might help them understand us better. Ji-eun pushed her food around her plate. I know we're new to the Concordate. I know they see us as primitive, but we need to find a way to work together. Sung-ho looked at her. Then he said something he rarely said to anyone. When I was 15, I watched Void Coalition soldiers kill my family. They knew exactly where to find us. They knew we would run to the basement. They knew because they read the minds of our neighbors. Ji-eun's eyes widened. I'm sorry. I was quiet. I stayed behind a wall. I didn't think. I made my mind blank. He put down his fork. That's how I survived. By being silent. Ji-eun nodded, slowly. And that's why you don't talk much. You're still being silent. It's not just habit, Sung-ho said. I learned something important that day. There is power in silence. There is strength in being unreadable. The others don't see it that way. Sung-ho almost smiled. They will. The next day, Commander Taewan stood at the edge of the training room. His face was serious as he watched. The squad prepare. This exercise will test your ability to capture an enemy communication hub, he said. You will face Void Coalition defenders. They will be able to read the minds of everyone except the humans. Begin. The white walls disappeared. Now they stood on a rocky planet. A small building sat on top of a hill. 6 enemy soldiers guarded it. Standard approach, Zal said through the mind network that only the aliens could hear. Voss, provide cover fire. Nemi, circle left. I will take point. Sung-ho could not hear any of this. But he had been in enough training exercises to know what they would do. The same thing they always did. And it would fail. Just like always. He looked at Ji-eun and pointed. To the right side of the hill. Then he pointed to himself and made a circle motion with his finger. He would go around the back. Ji-eun nodded slightly. At least she understood. The squad moved out. The aliens moved together, coordinating perfectly through their telepathy. Ji-eun tried to follow Sung-ho, but Zal grabbed her arm with one of its insect limbs. Stay with the group. It clicked. Sung-ho was already gone, moving silently through the rocks. The enemy soldiers were focusing on the main group. They had not seen him. The main group began to attack. The air filled with simulated weapons fire. Sung-ho moved up behind the building. There was a small entrance here. Just as he had thought, inside he found the communication controls. They were simple enough. He was about to shut them down when 2 enemy soldiers came into the room. They had tracked the main group's thoughts and knew their plan. But they had not expected someone to come in the back way. Sung-ho moved quickly. In the simulation, his strikes only tagged the enemies with a bright light. Both soldiers were marked before they could react. Then he shut down the communication. Hub outside, the enemy soldiers suddenly lost their advantage. Without the hub, they could not coordinate. The squad was able to defeat them. When the simulation ended, Commander Taewan stepped forward. You succeeded in the mission, he said. But not as a team. He looked at Sung-ho. You acted alone. He completed the objective, Ji-eun said. Kyoken, a real battle. Acting alone gets you killed, Taewan said. This squad must learn to work together. How? Voss asked, crystal body pulsing with frustration. The humans cannot join our mind network. Taewan looked at each of them. That is exactly what you must figure out. The Concordate needs all species to work together. Find a way. After the commander left, the squad sat in silence. Even the aliens were not mind-speaking. I have been thinking, Nemi said finally, its green smoke form shifting inside its suit. Perhaps we are approaching this wrong. We expect the humans to adapt to our ways. Of course, Zal said. Our way is more advanced. Is it? Nemi floated closer to Sung-ho. This Human found a solution we did not see. He acted in a way the enemy did not expect. Sung-Ho looked up at the floating alien. The Void Coalition can read your thoughts. They know what you will do before you do it, but they cannot read me. Voss moved forward, crystal body now glowing with a softer blue light. This is true. The human silence could be useful. Silence as a strategy, Zal said, clicking its mandibles thoughtfully. Unexpected, Ji-un smiled. That's what humans bring to the Concordat. We're unpredictable. Sung-Ho stood up. We should practice a new way. You make plans that the enemy will hear. I will make plans they won't. The squad looked at each other. Slowly they nodded. For the next 3 days, they trained differently. The aliens would make obvious plans, drawing attention. Meanwhile, Sung-Ho and sometimes Ji-un would do something completely different. It worked better each time. On the 4th day, as they finished another successful exercise, an alarm sounded throughout the ship. All combat personnel to battle. Stations, said a voice over the speakers. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. The squad looked at each other. Their training was over. The Void Coalition had launched a surprise attack on a Concordat outpost. The Indomitable was being deployed as part of the counterattack. As they ran to their stations, Ji-un caught up to Sung-Ho. Are you ready for this? Sung-Ho nodded. His face showed no fear, no worry, just calm determination. Stay silent out there, Ji-un said. But stay alive too. Sung-Ho almost smiled. The silent ones survive, he said quietly. The enemy never hears them coming. Sung-Ho stared at the notice on his door. The blue paper stood out against the gray metal of his apartment. The galactic Concordat symbol was at the top. He knew what it meant before reading it. They were calling him to war. The year was 2257. Humans had joined the galactic Concordat just 5 years ago. The Concordat was a group of 12 different alien species who had agreed to help each other. Now they were at war with the Void Coalition, aliens who could read minds and thought. They were better than everyone else. Sung-Ho packed his few belongings into a small bag. His hands moved quickly, but his face showed nothing. 8 years ago, the Void Coalition had attacked Earth during first contact. Sung-Ho had watched his parents and sister die that day. He had not spoken much since then. At the transit station, hundreds of humans waited to board the ships that would take them to the Concordat fleet. Aliens walked among them. Some had many legs. Others floated in the air. Some looked almost human but had skin that glowed or changed colors. Name? Asked a tall alien with blue skin and 4 arms. It held a screen in one hand and a scanner in another. Kim Sung-Ho, he said quietly. The alien's eyes widened. You're speaking with sound waves. How primitive. It tapped the screen. Humans. The only Concordat species with no telepathy at all. Fascinating, but inefficient. Sung-Ho said, nothing. He was used to this. All the other species in the Concordat could speak with their minds. Humans could not. This made the aliens see humans as simple or broken. They did not understand that humans had their own strengths. The transport ship was crowded. Sung-Ho found a small corner and sat down. He closed his eyes and thought about his family, about his home in Seoul before the attack, about his father teaching him to fix engines. He had become an engineer because of his father. First time off-world? Sung-Ho opened his eyes. A woman with short black hair sat down next to him. Her uniform had a medical symbol on it. No, he said. I'm Ji-un, she said, waiting for him to say more. When he didn't, she smiled. Not much of a talker? That's okay. There's enough chatter on this ship to last a lifetime. Sung-Ho nodded. He liked that she didn't push him to talk. The ship took 3 days to reach the Concordat fleet. Sung-Ho spent most of that time looking out the small window at the stars. He had always wanted to see space. He just never thought it would be because of war. The main ship of the fleet was huge. It was called the Indomitable. As Sung-Ho stepped off the transport, he felt small. Aliens of all kinds moved around with purpose. Lights flashed. Voices and thoughts filled the air. All human recruits report to Level 7, Section C, said a voice over the speakers. Sung-ho followed the signs. The room was filled with humans in new uniforms. At the front stood a tall man with gray at his temples. His uniform had many medals. "I am Commander Tae-wan," he said. "I am the highest-ranking human in the Concordat military. You are here because humans have something the Concordat needs." He walked slowly across the front of the room. "The Void Coalition has an advantage. They can read minds. They can talk without making a sound. But they have a weakness too. They rely too much on this ability. In battle, they expect to know what their enemy is thinking." The commander smiled. "But they cannot read our minds. This makes us valuable. This makes us dangerous." Sung-ho listened carefully. He had never thought of his lack of telepathy as an advantage. "You will be placed in mixed-species squads," Tae-wan continued. "You will learn to work with beings very different from you. It will be hard. Many aliens think humans are stupid because we do not speak with our minds. Prove them wrong." After the meeting, Sung-ho received his assignment. He would be on Squad E, 42 on the Indomitable. He would be the engineer. His new squad room was larger than his whole apartment on Earth. 4 beds and 1 strange floating sphere were arranged around the room. His 3 alien squad members were already there. "The human arrives," said a tall insect-like alien with 4 arms and 2 legs. Its voice sounded like clicking metal. "I am Zal, tactical officer." "Voss," said a being that looked like a walking crystal. The light passing through its body made rainbow patterns on the floor. "Weapons." The 3rd alien looked like green smoke, inside a special suit. It floated near the ceiling. "I am Nemi, communications specialist." Its voice came from a small box on its suit. "I am Sung-ho, engineer," he said simply. The door opened and Ji-yoon walked in. Sung-ho recognized her from the transport. "Park Ji-yoon, combat medic," she said. "Looks like we're all here now." 2 humans in 1 squad. Zal clicked its mouth parts. "The commander must think this mission needs extra physical strength. Humans are good for carrying things at least." Ji-yoon frowned but said nothing. "The human male does not project his thoughts at all." Nemi's smoke form swirled faster inside its suit. "Is it damaged?" "He's not an it," Ji-yoon said. "His name is Sung-ho, and humans don't project thoughts, we talk with our voices." "So primitive," Voss said, crystal body glinting. "How do you communicate in battle? How do you coordinate?" Sung-ho looked at the aliens. They truly did not understand humans at all. "We manage," he said quietly. That night, as the others slept or did whatever their species did to rest, Sung-ho stood by the window looking at the stars. The ship would enter battle soon. The Void Coalition was attacking Concordat worlds one by one. He thought about his family again, about the day they died. He had been helpless then. He had watched and done nothing. He had been silent. But now things would be different. He might be quiet. He might not share his thoughts like the aliens did. But inside him burned a fire that had not gone out since that terrible day. A promise to never be helpless again. Genki. Stars looked cold and distant through the window. Somewhere out there the enemy waited. They thought they knew everything because they could read minds. But they could not read his, and that would be their mistake. Sung-ho touched the window. For the first time in years he smiled slightly. "I am coming," he whispered to the stars.